There are examples of megalithic works in hard basalt stone, such as at Vinapu, with smooth surfaces and very tight joints that could not have been achieved by the ancestors of the Polynesians. Thus, Easter Island and its history are more complex than conventional scholars would lead us to believe. Brian Furster, Aftershock, the ancient cataclysm that erased human history. Located west of Chile, in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, Easter Island has generated much debate among thousands of researchers worldwide. But now, new evidence is challenging everything we thought we knew about this tiny patch of land in the middle of nowhere. The place is forsaken and majestically lovely, as if nature had at last formed one spot where she could live for herself alone. Essentially druidic in its appearance, it gives the feeling that an ancient race might turn up at any moment and renew an ageless rite there. Marsden Hartley, American modernist painter, poet, and essayist. Usually when an out-of-place artifact is discovered, it comes in the shape of a tiny statuette, a gold pendant, or an iron nail. But here we have over 900 colossal stone statues whose origin appears to be lost in the Pacific Ocean. Easter Island is home to strange humanoid structures called Moai, some of which are attached to subterranean torsos. Others are strewn around the place as if hit by a tremendous force. The reason why their bodies are buried below the ground is because there was obviously a global flood. The resulting mud flow covered the statues up to their necks. This is also why some are tilted at different angles. Billy Carson, The Epic of Humanity. The official stance on Easter Island is that it was discovered accidentally by Polynesian migrants around the 4th century AD. Their descendants, living in isolation and apparently having nothing better to do, decided to carve giant statues and build massive platforms. Somehow they quickly achieved proficiency in advanced stone carving methods and the transportation and erection of statues weighing many tons. However, these enigmatic constructions are approximately 22 meters tall and weigh nearly 250 tons, raising questions about the impossibility of their construction without technology. Furthermore, there are over 300 stone platforms, or ahu, many of which are megalithic in proportion, scattered over the island. Some authors, such as researcher Eric von Daniken, believe they were designed with the help of the gods of the stars. His main thrust is that a small group of intelligent beings from another star system were stranded on Easter Island and taught the natives to make robot-like statues. Unfortunately, the first European missionaries on this tiny patch of Earth helped to ensure that the island's dark ages stayed dark. They burnt the tablets with hieroglyphic characters, prohibited the ancient cults of the gods, and did away with every kind of tradition. Yet thoroughly as the pious gentlemen went to work, they could not prevent the natives from calling their island the land of the birdmen, as they still do today. An orally transmitted legend tells us that flying men landed and lit fires in ancient times. The legend is confirmed by sculptures of flying creatures with big staring eyes. Erich von Daniken, Chariots of the Gods. According to the islanders, God Make was the creator of all things and embodied the fertilizing force of nature. Few traces of the cult remain, with the exception of the Birdman ceremony, which is held annually to celebrate Make, the deity that created humanity. The mysterious form of Make, usually as a type of Birdman creature, appears throughout Easter Island, mostly in petroglyphs. What if the Birdmen are nothing else but descriptions of extraterrestrials that were somehow involved in the goings-on at Easter Island in the remote past? Extraterrestrial groups have been terraforming and harvesting genetic material on the planet for more than 270 million years. Easter Island was a genetic experiment. Linda Moulton Howe, Glimpses of Other Realities. Others believe the statues and ceremonies have a much more earthly, although somewhat distant, origin. We'll look at this a bit later. Researcher Antonio Ribera carefully analyzed a specific area of the island, the Rano Raraku crater, a volcanic quarry where the Moai are believed to have been constructed. Indeed, in the crater lays the largest statue ever built, the giant. This monster, still attached to the bedrock, has a height of 21.75 meters and an estimated weight of 200 tons. Ribera believed the procedure for their construction involved carving the volcanic rock and extracting the Moai, while leaving a segment of rock connected to the volcano, similar to an umbilical cord. The statues were then slid down the slope into a pit where carving continued. Several doubts surround this procedure. First, how did they carve the hard rock on an island where trees and other materials for making tools were scarce? Second, several moai were carved from hard trachytes. With a hardness of 6 on the Mohs hardness scale, trachytes are nearly impossible to carve without technology, increasing the mystery of how they were created. Third, how did they transport blocks weighing over 250 tons and 22 meters tall down a steep slope and then across treacherous terrain to the other side of the island? Interestingly, according to the Rap Nui elders, very big men lived on the island well before the coming of Hotu Matua. Perhaps these very big men were actually giants. Jacob Roggeveen, the first known European explorer to reach the island, apparently recorded encountering giants that were 12 to 15 feet tall. He also states that they were very thick-set beings and refers to them as savages. Intriguing stuff for sure. The existence of a race of giants is backed up by many ancient texts, most notably the Bible. Strangely, later voyagers made no mention of giants on the island. If not giants, then how else might these statues have been moved? The Rapa Nui people say that the ancient masters extracted the Moai from the volcano and transported them with their minds using mana, a subtle energy similar to ether. The islanders were sure that the statues were moved thanks to mana, and they responded with bewilderment at the apparent ignorance of the foreigners who were unaware of mana, which was so evident to them. Catherine Routledge, The Mystery of Easter Island. However, there is some debate about precisely what mana was and whether it was actually a type of force emanating from the mind or a device of some kind. Mana was a direct gift from the gods that was given to the Easter Islanders. Was mana really a type of mystical force? Of course not. It was some type of misunderstood technology, some kind of device, an extraterrestrial tool with which one could move the Easter Island statues rather easily. Giorgio Tsoukalos, executive producer, Ancient Aliens. Before we move on to those who may have visited the island in the distant past, let's look at some unusual theories that seek to explain how the statues were moved. Number 1. Telekinesis. Ancient shamans with psychic powers levitated the Moai using their minds, guiding the statues across the island effortlessly. Number 2. Alien anti-gravity beams. Extraterrestrial visitors used anti-gravity technology to lift and transport the Moai, demonstrating their advanced capabilities. Number 3. Walking statues. The Moai were designed to walk upright to their destinations, using a secret mechanism that allowed them to wobble forward like animated beings. Number 4. Sonic levitation. Advanced knowledge of sound waves allowed the islanders to use harmonic frequencies to lift and move the massive statues. Number 5. Giant domesticated birds. Enormous, now extinct, birds were trained by the islanders to haul the statues across the landscape. One may look in wonder at the Easter Island Moai statues and ask, who built those? But there are clues hidden in plain sight. Connecting the dots all leads to the same ancient civilization, the one that left one constant all over the world, the polygonal building technique. Carlo Tonalezzi. The high level of rock wall carving that Ahu Tahira shows doesn't really belong in Rapa Nui or the rest of Polynesia. Furthermore, Diego Cortillo, one of the people most familiar with the mystery of the Moai, visited the island and observed how the Ahu is joined to the structure with such precision that not even a needle can fit in the crevices. The millimetric precision is exact. This makes many draw conclusions about contact with different civilizations. The most probable option would be the Inca, or their predecessors, who were well known for being the masters of rock wall building. An ancient legend offered by archaeologists is the theory that they had the knowledge of how to liquefy stone, something that sounds incredible, but was indeed witnessed by explorer Percy Fawcett in the late 19th century. There exists in South America a plant about 30 centimeters in height, with dark red leaves, which the natives call harakeke ama, and whose juice, very corrosive, softens the rock. Further on, as Fawcett tells us, the pito, a small bird in the Andes, has a habit of digging its nest in the rock and uses the juice of this plant. The bird brings back a leaf, hangs to the rock wall, then rubs the rock with the leaf in a circular motion. Several leaves and back and forth are needed until the rock is softened to the consistency of the wet clay. So the bird begins to pit the rock, digging a circular depression that will serve as its nest. This operation lasts only a few days. Fabrice Kircher, Investigation on the Unsizable. It was discovered for the first time that there were 3 clearly separated epochs in Easter Island's enigmatic history. First, a people of highly specialized culture, with the typical style of South American masonry technique, had been at work on Easter Island. Our carbon datings testified that these earliest discoverers of the island had arrived more than 1,000 years before the ancestors of the present Polynesian population. The classical buildings from this earliest period had no parallel in the later history of the island. Gigantic blocks of hard basalt were cut like cheese and fitted carefully to one another without a crack or a hole. Thor Heyerdahl, the Kon-Tiki expedition. Heyerdahl was a strong proponent of the Inca contact theory and even set out on a raft from the shores of South America to Easter Island to prove the journey was possible. Heyerdahl and his colleagues collected a great deal of evidence concerning the early period. Aquatic plants and the building of reed boats, the use of double-blade paddles, one-piece stone fishhooks, the shape of the dwellings, stone pounders and needles, which, according to their investigations, all pointed to the east, Peru, and are not found in the west, Indonesia, Asia, etc. Del Dowdle, Lehi never saw Mesoamerica. There are, of course, many more theories concerning exactly who was on this island before the Polynesians arrived. In fact, when researching the history of the island, one might get the impression that this was an important location for numerous civilizations, which is strange for a tiny speck of land in the middle of nowhere. What we discovered broke the centuries-old silence and surpassed all that was imaginable. Ancient relations with our sea, the Mediterranean, solidly documented through petroglyphs, oral traditions, toponymy, and other diverse evidence that the first colonizers of the island came from the eastern Mediterranean, specifically from Egypt. Antonio Ribera, Operation Rapa Nui. Barry Fell, a professor at Harvard University, has also studied the possibility that the Egyptians visited Easter Island in ancient times. He maintains that Ptolemy III knew the Earth was spherical and organized an expedition to sail around the world, discovering this mysterious island along the way. Astrophysicist Juan Antonio Belmonte and archaeologist Edmundo Edwards interviewed the guardians of the Rapa Nui tradition. These guardians stated that they had known of the Pleiades and Orion's belt since ancient times. One piece of evidence they provided is a stone with small holes matching the position of these stars in the sky. David Hatcher Childress, on the origin of the so-called long-eared people, states, as tall, bearded navigators of the world, they were probably a combination of Egyptian, Libyan, Phoenician, Ethiopian, Greek and Celtic sailors in combination with Indo-Europeans from the Indian subcontinent. According to Polynesian legend, these sailors also have the famous long ears that are well known on both Rapa Nui, Easter Island, and Rarotonga. When proof was found in 1978 that some of the Easter Island statues once had inlaid eyes, it came as a shock to many researchers who had opposed the idea on the grounds that this was not a Polynesian custom. Inlaid eyes were a common feature of many of the oldest images of the Middle East, from Egypt to the Indus Valley. The seafaring Hittites, for example, adopted the practice from the Sumerians. Many prehistoric American stone statues also had inlaid eyes. David Pratt, Easter Island, Land of Mysteries. It should be noted that the study of Rapa Nui culture holds many other mysteries, including 28 obsidian tablets inscribed with a language called Rongorongo, whose meaning remains undeciphered. These tablets are now scattered across various museums worldwide. The writing on the first line begins on the left and ends on the right. It continues on the second line, beginning on the right, ending on the left. The third line then starts on the left, and so on. Writings found at Mohenjo-Daro in Pakistan, presumed to be one of the 7 Rishi cities of the Rama Empire, and still undeciphered, have also been found in one other place in the world, Easter Island. Writing on Easter Island, called Rongorongo writing, is also undeciphered and is uncannily similar to the Mohenjo-Daro script. Vigyan Prasar, New Delhi Department of Science and Technology. Could the knowledge encoded in these tablets belong to the ancient wisdom of the lost island of Hiva? According to legend, in ancient times there was another, much larger island called Hiva that disappeared beneath the waters in a terrible cataclysm caused by the wrath of the god Make. The inhabitants of Hiva knew a cataclysm would destroy their home, so King Hotu Matua sent his 7 sons to explore and find a better refuge. They discovered Easter Island. This legend is reflected in the Moai. 7 of these Moai faced the sea, representing the 7 sons of the king. For hundreds of years, the inhabitants of Hiva survived on Rapa Nui, leaving traces of a technology that goes beyond what history books recount, a knowledge said to have been left by the gods of the stars. It is also a fact, not easy to explain away as coincidence, that the oldest local traditions describe Easter Island as having once been part of a much larger country. These traditions contain confusing and contradictory elements, but all agree that in the most distant mythical past. Other legends of the Easter Islanders tell us more about Hiva, the mysterious land from which woke is said to have come. We learn that it was once a proud island of enormous size, but that it too suffered in the great cataclysm and was submerged in the sea. Afterward, a group of 300 survivors set out in 2 very large ocean-going canoes to sail to Tepito Otehenua, having magically obtained foreknowledge of the existence of the island and of how to steer a course towards it using the stars. Graham Hancock, Heaven's Mirror. Lemuria was placed in the Pacific Ocean, covering from India across Australia, New Zealand, the Pacific Islands to Hawaii in the north and Easter Island in the east. There are coral reefs in deep water off the coast of some of the Pacific Islands, suggesting that at one time the land was higher, or that the sea level was much lower. The first men to live on the island were the survivors of the world's first race. They were yellow, very big, with long arms, great stout chests and huge ears. Although their lobes were not stretched, they had pure yellow hair, and their bodies were hairless and shining. They did not possess fire. This race once existed on 2 other Polynesian islands. They came by boat from a land that lies behind America. Francis Mazière, Fantastique Île de Pâques. Babaja and the 18 Siddha Kriya Yoga tradition shows a map of India in 30,000 BC. Joining India to Australia, it also shows Mount Meru as one of the mountain peaks. Other sources put Mount Meru at the North Pole, or as another name for the Great Pyramid in Egypt. Maurice Doreal, Mysteries of the Gobi. Of course, the Anunnaki have also been linked to the island. Anunnaki built a settlement on Easter Island, Rapa Nui, using the same sonar technology they'd used in South Africa, Turkey, and Iraq. They considered Easter a navel of the earth, along a line of settlements from Eurasia to a landing platform built by Enlil's sons, Princes Ninurta and Adad Viracocha, 13,000 years ago at Pumapunku and Tiahuanacu on the shores and under Lake Titicaca atop the Andes. Sasha Lessin, Anunnaki, Legacy of the Gods. Is this what the Anunnaki looked like? Maybe. By combining lines of the Rongorongo script using AI software, Heather Lynn, author of the Anunnaki Connection, received the following translation. The leader governs the sky and waters, mastering the night and day. The sun and moon, mastering the waters and sky, the leader of waters and sky, radiant like the sun, guides under the moon. The moon and sun guide the leader of the sky and waters. Sky beings descend, bringing wisdom from the waters of life. Interesting stuff, but ultimately we cannot say for sure who built the statues, nor who exactly visited the island in remote epochs. What if all these races and civilizations come here at some point? This would imply that Easter Island is far more important than we think. Could it have been one of the following? Number 1. Global Energy Hub. Easter Island was the focal point of an ancient global energy grid, with the Moai acting as conduits for transmitting power to other sacred sites like the pyramids and Stonehenge. Number 2. Intercontinental Communication Center. Easter Island housed advanced communication technology, possibly alien in origin, that allowed civilizations to share knowledge and coordinate across continents. Number 3. Spiritual Nexus. The island was a sacred pilgrimage site where ancient peoples believed the spiritual energies of Earth and the cosmos converged, connecting humanity to higher realms. Number 4. Meeting point for extraterrestrial contact. Ancient civilizations regarded Easter Island as a hotspot for interactions with extraterrestrial beings who shared knowledge and technology. Number 5. Magnetic Field Manipulation Site. Ancient civilizations used Easter Island to manipulate Earth's magnetic field, enabling navigation and technology that depended on geomagnetic properties. And on that note, we come to the end of today's show. Let us know your thoughts on Easter Island in the comments section below. As always, thanks for watching.